Hi. So for my project, I have decided to do the life cycle of birds. This is just an overview of all the things that you're going to be able to see within my PowerPoint, within my presentation that I'm going to go over. So like I previously stated, my theme for my center is the life cycle of birds and is specifically intended for second grade, and it is in alignment with the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. Birds play a huge role within our ecosystems. They pollinate flowering plants, they disperse seeds, they scavenge carcasses, and recycle nutrients back into the earth. Birds are found in settings all around us, and we're able to observe them from anywhere, from our windows, going out into the community and exploring just about anywhere you can see them. And I think it's important that students understand the role that birds play within our environment because they do play and they do have a huge role. With them learning about birds, it also makes way for them to learn about how animals are within their natural habitats and what their natural habitats are, as well as animal behavior and conservation. So I have chosen a group of vocabulary words that I noticed could be seen across every single one of the books that I had handpicked specifically for this literacy-based center. Things like migration, which is the seasonal movement of animals, invertebrates, an animal with a backbone, and predators, animals that kill other animals for food, such as owls. And so a lot of those vocabulary words you can see across a lot of the books that I have specifically chosen, like birds and nesting. A lot of those books you can see every single one of those vocabulary words, and I think it's important that they learn the vocabulary words and the vocabulary so that they're familiar with it when they are reading these books on their own. So the objectives for this whole entire center is that they understand the basic knowledge of birds, what birds are, where they live and how they survive, migration, understanding that birds are living things, and that they require food, water, and shelter just like we do. And also being able to identify the specific characteristics of birds. Most birds have hollow bones that are very light and strong. They have flight feathers that are perfectly aerodynamic, lightweight, strong, smooth, flexible. They have strong breastbones, breast muscles that give them power to flap their wings. Their respiratory and circulatory systems are very efficient, so they have plenty of oxygen and energy for their flight muscles. Like just a bunch of characteristics about birds, including their beaks and their eyes. Also, identifying the importance of feathers and beaks for survival, being able to research how birds function, what they eat, reproduction and growth, how they are created, where they grow, how eggs protect and nourish birds. So, like I previously stated, this center is in alignment with the North Carolina standards, and I have listed a couple of those here, specifically being able to read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. This center is literacy based, so there's a lot of books that's going to be available for children to read and explore, and it's important that they learn how to read on level with text with purpose and understanding. Also, participating in research and writing projects and recalling information from experiences or gather information from provided sources to answer a question. Also, writing, being able to write with guidance and support from an adult, learning about the structure and the functions of living organisms, understanding animal life cycles, and they're going to get into a lot of that later on when I'm going through the centers, and summarizing the life cycle of animals, birth development into an adult, reproducing and aging and death, and also identifying the physical characteristics. So the materials and the resources that is needed for the center to be successful is books across varying genres, photos of birds and nests that can be explored, eggs and eggshells, feathers, clipboards, craft materials, magnifying glasses, seeds and other bird materials for the feeders. So I have chosen a great deal of books that are across several genres that will be available, or that I would hope would be available during this particular theme during this time for the center. So here's some of the books that I have chosen. A lot of them are picture books. Well, most of them are picture books, but there's a lot of informative books that students will be able to use and explore that'll help teach them about the life cycle of birds. And there's some fun books in there that are about some of the, parts of the cycle, such as the eggs, like The Good Egg. That's a wonderful book. Nesting. And I have also chosen a bunch of other books that go along with it as well. This, for me, would be the layout for the classroom. I would have groups of 4, and then a 5th group in the back, which would be small group with the teacher. I would expect for this entire center to run for the course of 5 to 7 days. Maybe I would go as far as to even say 8 or 9, just to make sure that they're not having to cram in all of the information at one time, and they're able to really understand and explore all of the wonderful things there is to learn about birds. But like I previously stated, each group would be made up of 4 students, and the desks have been arranged into groups to make it easier. In each group, there is a bucket of materials. As you can see, it's represented in the photo as the white buckets that's in the center of each table. Every day that they're having to transition through the centers, they will have materials in those buckets that they're able to use that is for the particular activity that they will be working on. And I figured I would do it that way for the simple fact that it would minimize the time that it would take for them to have to cut out and arrange things themselves. It would just make it easier if they could just pick the materials up out of the bucket and put them together. So before I get started on explaining the different centers that the students will be transitioning to, I thought I'd give you sort of an example of what I mean by a journal. It's just something that looks just like this, and this is just a rough draft. I just made it up just to show what I mean by journal. But basically, it's a booklet that is made out of printer paper. You could use cardstock paper, and it's just the paper's folded, and it has a space for their vocabulary word and a page for them to record things that they find interesting in their centers, answer questions, write out definitions, whatever it may be, and to cut and paste as well, whatever they need to cut and paste. Instead of having multiple different pieces of paper that they're going to have to keep up with throughout the week, I figured it would be easier for students to keep up with things if it's all in one little booklet, and it would be easier for them because at the end of the week, when the center's done, they'll be able to go back and see all of the work that they've done throughout the entire week that the center has ran. So the first center is called Investigation Station, and basically in this group, students have a chance to explore different types of feathers and eggs. And you can find these types of feathers online on Amazon. You can buy them in bulk, different kinds, and they will just have a chance to explore them, feel them, and record what they feel, and record the different colors and into their journals. During this center, they'll be able to learn and understand that all birds come from eggs and how they hatch. They'll learn that there are different kinds of eggs and that have different kinds of textures, and the importance of the feathers. So I just wrote out the directions for this station. It's just going off with what I said for the previously. But at the end of this center, they'll be able to create a personalized feather or an egg, whichever they choose themselves, that will, once dry, can also be cut and pasted into their mini journals, or they can draw them, whichever they want to use. The second center is the life cycle formation of birds. In this group, they'll learn all about the cycle in its entirety, from it being an embryo to it being an adult. If they finish reading the materials and doing the activity in this center, which is they'll all get a little baggie, little Ziploc baggie, and in each baggie there are the steps of the life cycle in there that form together to make one whole puzzle. I didn't put the puzzle together, so I'm not going to bother showing it. But the pieces go together to form a puzzle, and that's how they know when they have it in the correct order if the puzzle fits together. And once they get the puzzle together, they'll just glue it right into their journal so that they'll have the entire cycle there for them to look at. If they finish before the time's up for them to transition to the other group, they can work on their vocabulary word work, such as ghost letters. And ghost letters is just where they write the word in white crayon, and then they go over it with a colorful marker. So the next center is the writing center. This is probably one of the most important centers because it teaches them a lot. This one is specifically focused around the characteristics of birds. They have very unique physical and behavioral adaptations that allow them to live in a variety of environments. For example, bird wings and flight. Where and how a bird flies is reflected in the shape and size of its wings. The most common wing shape is short and rounded. Students will learn that all birds have two wings. They have feathers. They have a high metabolic rate. Raptors that soar have broad, long wings that allow them to ride on risings. Like, they'll just learn a lot of different things about the characteristics of birds. And once they get finished reading through a lot of the materials and going through the information in this group, they'll be able to cut and paste a bird into their little journals, and then they'll have a chance to label the anatomy of that bird. But the biggest part of this writing center is that they would choose a characteristic that they think is the most important characteristic of a bird and then write about it. It can be a paragraph, maybe even 2 paragraphs, but as long as it showcases why they think it's the most important characteristic of a bird, I think that would be awesome. And so my example that I gave is very short, but basically to start it out, I said all birds have beaks or bills, and they don't have teeth. A bird's beak is shaped in a way for the certain type of food that they eat. For example, hummingbirds have long tubular beaks to reach the bottom of a flower and drink nectar. The next center is the nesting center. In this center, they'll learn about a little bit more about the nesting stage of birds, but they'll also mainly be learning about how the nests are built, what materials birds use. There are over 200 kinds of birds, and no single bird makes the same nest. They all use different types of materials. They all build their nest in different places. For example, ducks and killdeer, they're birds that construct their nest on the ground. Eagles build nests on top of the highest trees. Woodpeckers use natural holes or cavities in trees and other places to lay their eggs. So there's a lot of places and a lot of materials that different birds use to create their nest. And so I thought it would be a wonderful idea to have them create a nest of their own, using whatever materials they have at home, whatever materials they could use from the classroom to create a nest. And I created like a short example of what a nest that a student might create. And so basically I just formed mine out of paper. I colored it brown. I added some dryer sheets and a fake little owl, and there's the nest that I had created. So I just thought that would be a very fun interactive activity for them to learn about different nests. So Center 5 that they would transition through is the small group, and in this group specifically they'll be working on the vocabulary. That is one of the most important parts. Knowing the vocabulary beforehand will help them understand it while they're reading through all of the different books. But in this group, they'll also play a fun game after they've went over the vocabulary and written down their vocabulary words and practiced it, they'll be playing a matching game where they have to match the picture to the word. Then I would like to finish in a whole group where they all make bird seed feeders. We learned about the different nests, and so this would be, a wonderful time for them to learn about what birds eat. And so they could all create little bird seed feeders, and I created one myself, just as an example. And I added a little jewel to the bottom of mine. But basically, they would create these little tiny bird seed feeders with cereal or nuts or seeds or dried fruit, uncooked oats, whatever materials that we could gather. We could make bird seed feeders for them to take home. So also during the whole group, we can just recap on, and this could be on another day, but we could recap all of the things that we learned throughout this entire experience. And also with the assignment of the students being able to create their nest, this could be the day where they could all share the different nests that they created. And it'll just give them time to interact with each other and just really show the things that they've created. And lastly, I have just added a list of additional books that I would like to have available during this literacy-based learning center. The literature part of this entire center is the most important part. The children learning to read for information is a great way for them to learn. So, thank you for watching my PowerPoint and my presentation.